Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Before we begin, the Grandel Wrestling Podcast would like to salute our partners who make all this possible. First, the St. Louis Kings of the Calzone, sauce on the side in the Grove. You can't go wrong with the Pancho Villa or one of their dessert calzones. There is an art to this dish, and there is one master artist of the calzone, sauce on the side. Dine in, carry out, or delivery. We'd also like to welcome the newest member of our family, the Southwest Diner. Serving up diner staples and foods of the American Southwest, Southwest Diner has been a favorite of locals and visitors alike since 2012. If you're into the classics, you can't go wrong with the biscuits and homemade sausage gravy. You like spice? Dig into Jonathan's famous fiery scramble. They also do an excellent smash burger. You gotta check it out. The crispy edges are amazing. Now offering delivery, curbside pickup, and a brand spanking new patio. There are plenty of safe and enjoyable ways to get your Southwest Diner fix. And now, on with the show. Hello and welcome back to the Grandel Wrestling Podcast. Ben Simon here with one of St. Louis's best. Hey, nothing's different. I'm here with the one and only American Wolf, Davey Richards, the captain of Team Ambition. Welcome, sir.
Not the captain, just part of the team, but thank you for having me.
There's so many shows in the area where these guys are like, hey, put representing Team Ambition in my intro. And that's pretty cool. Tell us, what is Team Ambition?
The genesis of it was a formation between me, Tony Kazina, and Kyle O'Reilly years ago. I can't put a number on it. And it was just, we took the road less traveled in wrestling. We came up the hard way. We traveled this country, I don't know how many times over. We paid our dues. The way the people that we respected came before us, the guys from the NWA and so forth. So we had the ambition to come from not great circumstances growing up to having this common goal of making it, not for money or fame, just to purpose, that purpose in life. And then, we went our separate ways. I went to Impact Wrestling and then chased the medical side of things. Tony went to New Zealand and became a coach for an affiliate of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And Kyle, as you know, got signed to NXT. And it kind of dissolved. And when I was finally wanting to return to professional wrestling, I needed some place to go and train. And, all I knew was that Michael Elgin had a school in St. Louis. And I told my wife, I was like, yeah, I'll go down there and get a workout. And then we worked out a couple times, and they're like, hey, do you want to be the trainer? And then I found out the whole, backstory with what had happened with Mike. And
some controversy.
Whatever.
But you're training now. You're training young upstarts and some guys who are already on the top of St. Louis wrestling. And right now, that's Team Ambition.
Yeah, absolutely. I presented like, hey, I had this concept for my team, and I'd like to bring that forward, and they were all for it. And I think we really found each other at the right time. I really needed them, and they really needed me, and it's just been very organic. And we have such an array of talent, but everyone's talented in their own fields. Moses, Powell wrestles nothing like Raheem, who wrestles nothing like Outlaw, who wrestles nothing like Warhorse, but yet they're all just absolutely incredible. And it's I don't know, I don't want to be all over the top, but it's like watching my children grow. I just went and saw Tootie and NWA, and I'm like, I'm not crying, you're crying.
Yeah.
And just seeing like Outlaw win the title and seeing Warhorse debut in MLW, I am very proud of them.
There's a lot of special moments indeed.
Absolutely.
Now, you got involved in wrestling training the first time, I understand, in your early 20s, but you have a background in jiu-jitsu, is that right?
Yeah, wrestling has been my entire life, that's why when I came back to wrestling, I had a really good job, at a fire department and, just graduated with my pre-medical degree. But what people didn't understand, who thought I was crazy for going back to wrestling, was wrestling is my life's work. I've been wrestling since I was 10 years old. From a long history of amateur wrestling to jiu-jitsu to, catch wrestling to professional wrestling. Wrestling has been, my entire life, as you can tell by my stellar looks with my ears and everything. So, but, and it has to end my way. So that was my story of coming back into it and training people and training myself.
Why did you choose to get into pro wrestling versus MMA? I know MMA was really blowing up whenever you first started training.
Not so much when I was training. So, well, it's funny how this works. It's funny that I actually just wrestled Suzuki. So he was the guy that got me into professional wrestling.
Oh, he also fought MMA too, right?
Yeah, Pancrase. So, I was a collegiate wrestler. I went to college on a wrestling scholarship, and so Washington State cut all amateur wrestling for a period of 4 or 5 years, but it was my second year in college, and going from full ride scholarship to now you got to pay was like, oh man. So I did what any dumb kid would do, and I was like, oh, I'll just go back later. So later it turned into about 20 years, but so I'm back on the farm in Washington, and I'm like, man, what am I gonna do? And so I saw this TV show, Tough Enough. And these guys are puking and they couldn't run 3 miles. And I'm like, man, I could do this. I used to watch this when I was a kid because I had never seen WWF.
Now, this is back in 01, the original Tough Enough.
Yeah. I had never seen WWF growing up. I saw NWA and I saw some World Class. But what I primarily saw when I was a kid was Stampede Wrestling and Pacific Northwest Wrestling, which is very sport oriented. So when I started getting back into it in like 2000, 2001, I was very turned off by what I saw of then WWF. And so my buddy, he's like, no, you got to see like this Japanese pro wrestling. And I was like, okay. And then he showed me Pancrase. And it was Suzuki versus Frank Shamrock. And I was just blown away. And I was like, this is pro wrestling? Like, oh man, sign me up. So then I went and trained with Paul Orndorff. And it wasn't quite like Pancrase, but but he was very sports oriented as well, which is what I needed. Because if I had gotten into it and it was very character driven, I would have been turned off by that. So Pancrase actually is what got me into professional wrestling.
Now Pancrase is, for those not in the know, it's pro wrestling to the point where it looks like actual fights, but it's worked, right?
Well, that is a point of debate. If you ask any guys who fought in Pancrase, they will look at you with a very stern eye. But so pro wrestling originated with real wrestlers making money, and that's why, like catch wrestlers, shoot wrestlers, St. Louis's own Lou Thesz was not only legit but absolutely feared, and that carries on with people like Minoru Suzuki and people who are professional wrestlers but very legitimate wrestlers, and I take a lot of pride in carrying on that lineage of, I'm here to make money, but I am a legitimate athlete, and I instill that into my students.
A love for wrestling history, mad respect there. Mm-hmm. Two of a kind. What brought you to St. Louis, though, being from Washington State? Because you've been here for a long time.
Yeah. This is home now, and I was born in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. There's a certain calm from my mountains, and weather like today in St. Louis, the rain, I love it. My wife hates it, but I came here. Oh, you guys are going to get me sleeping on the couch tonight. I came here for a girl who I'm not currently married to, but married to the love of my life. Let me just put that so I can always sleep in my own bed tonight. But I owned a wrestling school, so I had traveled and lived everywhere. I had lived in Japan because I went back through the dojo system. I had lived in Charlotte, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and I was back home in Washington. And I owned a wrestling school, me and Tony Casino, and it was going great. And one day this beautiful woman walks in, and I'm like, and she was dressed very professionally. I'm like, what? All right, she's like, I want to be a pro wrestler, and I'm like, I don't think you do. And she's like, yeah, I'm an aeronautical engineer at Boeing. And I'm like, why do you want to fall down for a living? And so anyway, so we, and I'm so embarrassed to say this, but I did the creepy trainer thing, but respectfully,
It worked out though, right?
In the long run, yeah. But I respectfully asked her out, and I was like, but if you say no, like, the training's still the same, blah blah blah. But oh my god, I'm such a creep. But anyways, it worked out, and so she was from St. Louis.
Is that Christy Summers? There you go. She was a World League Wrestling wrestler, right?
Yeah, that was me and her were married. So she would have moved to Washington, or I could have moved to St. Louis. And at that time, I was raised with my grandparents. My grandparents had both died. So I have nothing left in Washington, and her family was all over here. So we moved here. Or I moved here. She already lived here, and to Soulard. And I've been here ever since. There was times I thought about going home, had the opportunity to go home, and I feel like this city really took me in, and to where now, I was, for my entire wrestling career, I've been billed from Othello, Washington, which is where I was born, but now I get billed from St. Louis, Missouri, because this is home. I mean, my son was born here. My wife is here, and all my friends are here, and so I take a lot of pride in being part of this city and being part of the building wrestling community.
And St. Louis is better for it, I think. What would you think? When did you know that wrestling was the way you were going to go? That you had a future in pro wrestling? Was it Ring of Honor?
No, 10 years old. No, I had a. Not tumultuous, but I had a very different childhood. My mom, she went to prison when I was a child, and my dad's not been around. So I was raised by my grandparents, and they were fantastic. But they were from an older generation, and I had a lot of anger problems as a child, and I never really found my place to fit in. And I loved martial arts. I grew up on like blood sport, and I always, like, when I was a kid, I always wanted to fight in the kumite, but there was no martial arts school in where I grew up, and I tried other sports. I tried baseball, I tried basketball, and I was just horrible, and I just kept getting in fights at school, and so the wrestling coach took me to the mats at the high school, and it was, I remember it was sweaty, and it was in July. No, I'm sorry, it was in June, and there was red mats. And there was another kid there who was probably a little bit older than me, but not much, and he was wearing shirts and a polo shirt. I remember it, and he was like, "Well, take him down," and I'll never forget like looking in his eyes and being like, "I got you," and it was just, and right then I knew what I was going to do the rest of my life. So I mean, I really, my mom has recovered quite a bit. My mom said something very profound to me one time, and she's like, when I was going to quit when I got married to Christy Summers, and she was like, "You didn't choose wrestling, it chose you." And that's, and as my wife now can attest to it, I'm completely obsessed with it. I'm always trying holds on her and making her watch, stuff like that. So it's been a part of me since, for a long time.
I didn't expect that answer. I'm glad you told that story. Thank you for sharing. The first time that I think that a lot of the fans in the U.S. at least got to know Davey Richards was when Ring of Honor got the deal with HDNet, and we all saw the American Wolves, you and Eddie Edwards.
Yeah.
What is your relationship with Eddie, and how did that begin? How did you become one of the most well-known tag teams of that era?
My relationship with Eddie has always been great. We're polar opposites, but we balance each other out. He's very calm and relaxed and kind of take it as it comes, and I'm just like neurotic and, no, we got to do this, and so we balance each other out very well, and his strengths in wrestling complement my strength. So the way we came about was we wrestled in Japan for Pro Wrestling Noah for at least a couple years, but we never tagged over there, nothing, but through traveling and riding together, and we had a lot of the same interests. And I remember we were at the Ring of Honor show where they were filming that movie The Wrestler, and he was on the pre-show, I think, and he had like dreads, and I was like, man, it's Davey Boy Smith. And of course, I'm, you know, especially at that time, but always, you know, I'm the Dynamite Kid clone. Yeah. And so the booker of Ring of Honor at that time was Gabe Sapolsky, who just then and now has a brilliant mind for the business. You know, definitely a strong protege of Paul Heyman. And I just kept pitching like, man, you got to put us together. You got to put us together. We didn't have a name yet, but you got to put us together. And Gabe was like, no, because Gabe wanted to push me and put the world title on me. And I was like, no, man, you got to, you know. So, and Gabe was 100% against it. And so, but Gabe left, got fired, whatever, I don't know. And Adam Pearce took over. And Adam Pearce is the one who I got to give a lot of credit to, gave what would become the American Wolves their shot. So it started there, and then we were part of Larry Sweeney's faction.
That was the beginning of it, wasn't it?
That was, yeah. And you know, of course, no one knew at the time, you know, how big the American Wolves was going to get, and we didn't even have a name at that time. I didn't think of the name until like 6 months later when I was in England. But yeah, I mean, it's something I'm very proud of because we went through multiple organizations and we always kept the same style and for the most part the same name. So I mean, I feel like we always had enough respect that no one really tried to ever change us too much, and so I think that speaks very highly of the quality of matches we produced.
So you guys started as an evil tag team, then you were a good tag team, but then we're in like 2011. Eddie Edwards is the Ring of Honor champion. Yeah. How did you guys mutually handle the singles portion of your careers? And who pushed for that? Was it? I mean, Gabe was gone, right?
Yeah, me. Yeah, I always wanted Eddie to be champion. It's always been the mark of a man and the mark of a champion and the mark of a leader is to bring the best out of those around him. You know, this I will forewarn you, this will sound arrogant, but I have found, one, if you're going to go out and put your body on the line in spandex, you better believe you're the best in the world. You know, I think Bret Hart said it best, that if you walk out of that curtain thinking you're anything less than the best, you're in the wrong business. You know, because I know I'd be pretty pissed off if I paid $300 to go see Iron Maiden play, and, you know, they walk on stage and they're like, I don't know why we're even here. We're horrible. You know, I want them going out thinking they're the greatest band in the world, you know, or so, you know, so I've always been a proponent, and I've always had an abundance of self-belief, you know, and this will sound arrogant as I forewarned, but like I am the best wrestler in the world. There's no one in that ring that can touch me. And with that being said, it's not about, I don't use that to promote myself. I don't need to wear the shiny belts. I've worn all those. But my job and my passion is to help others realize that, you know. And so I always pushed for Eddie because I saw in him what I think at the time he couldn't even see in himself, whereas you're not Davey's tag partner. You know, you are a world champion. You are one of the best. And, you know, I'm really happy for him. And I wish it could have lasted longer. I'm very happy to have the match with him. I don't remember much of it because I got knocked out pretty early in it.
The one where you won the title?
The one where I kicked his head off his shoulders. Yeah. That was a very emotional match for me. I got knocked out pretty early, which again is a testament to how good Eddie Edwards is, because he literally carried me through it. And then, but it was a very cathartic thing because it was, I guess, kind of made my grandparents' deaths and me traveling during them not for nothing. So
that belt, I know you say that now you don't need belts, you know how good you are, but that had to change something for you, right? That first Ring of Honor title.
It was validation, you know. It was so to tell the complete story is I won my first wrestling title in Abbotsford, British Columbia, and it was a plastic belt, you know, I can't remember the name of the promotion, but it was my first one, you know, and I was so proud, and I was driving back to show my grandparents, like, hey, I'm making it, I'm doing this, and then I got the word that my grandfather had died. So, and then when I was living in Japan, I got the call that my grandmother died. And so I had missed being there at the end because of wrestling. Not that I'm blaming it, but and so for me to win the world title was it was more so about validation than it was about a shiny belt. It was about this was for something. This from my grandfather timing me running down the driveway doing sprints, get ready for wrestling, or or me and him trying to build this makeshift ring with mattresses out, on the side of this barn. It went from that to us selling out the Hammerstein and me winning, this title. So it meant something. So that was the biggest victory for me.
And there's always fluctuations. You're talking about selling out the Hammerstein. We also got to see you, though, here in the Midwest. St. Louis Anarchy, I believe. You brought the Ring of Honor Championship. I can't remember if it was defended, but I remember seeing it. And I got to announce a match of yours in Central Illinois for, I think, Pro Wrestling Epic. And I don't remember if you were wrestling Kozina or Jimmy Jacobs or someone among that caliber. And I was like, this is going to be freaking amazing. We got some of the best wrestlers in the world. And you come out and you go into the custodial closet and you get a vacuum cleaner. I guess you remember this. And you're going to vacuum up the competition. And it's a complete comedy match. And I was like, what happened? How do you determine, first of all, is there a story behind that? But also, how do you determine who gets the big matches and who gets the comedy matches?
Well, so
you're very versatile.
So I've actually told my wife about this, and actually my wife and my students saw it for the first time in West Virginia. So there's Davey Richards, and everyone knows, Davey Richards. You're getting an athletic, hard hitting match. And it's the roller coaster, and then there's old DR, and then so. A lot of times back then, and I love him, but I love him that Tony Kozina would get me. He would get himself booked on shows by getting me booked on shows and not telling me about it. So, like if you go on the internet and type in Davey Richards versus Tony Kozina, there's a show somewhere in Illinois where I didn't even have my gear. I just had shorts because he called me up that day and was like, hey, man, we're wrestling. Where are you? And I was like, oh, shit. I got to go, man. So I get there. And so, I was wrestling a lot. What people don't understand about that point in my career was I was a champion in the United States. I was also a champion in New Japan. So, and this is before Ring of Honor and New Japan had a working agreement. So they didn't correlate the dates. So I would go over there for a week, fly home, defend the title in Chicago, Ring of Honor, then fly back to Japan. I'm just going back and forth nonstop. And this is Ring of Honor and New Japan. These are very athletic, hard-hitting matches that take a lot out of you. So when I get home from wherever I've been, and then Tony's like, hey, man, I got you booked on Sunday at Pro Wrestling Epic or whatever. And I'm like, thanks, Tone. So if this is the place I remember, I think it was a tournament, if I remember correctly. Or there was one of them where it was a tournament.
It might have been the Epic 8, I think is what they called it.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, you're going to the finals. And I'm like, so I'm wrestling 3 times, and I'm like, and I'm so beat up. I'm tired, I'm beat up. And, so yeah, it kind of became... It kind of turned into, comedy. Plus, I don't know. I mean, you kind of got to judge your crowd. But I can also look back now and just say I was burnt out. I mean, you can't wrestle that much. And an easy night for me was 20 minutes. And that was an easy night, And then, I went from like Hammerstein Ballroom to the Chicago Fieldhouse to Corcoran Hall to Sumo Hall to the Hammerstein to, where, Philadelphia Armory, like these are predominant shows. And then you had TV tapings, and then you had Japan pay-per-views, and it was like Davey produce. And I was beat up. So, when those shows came along, and if you're watching out there, I apologize, and book me again. I'll give you your money's worth a little bit more, but hopefully they were entertained. But I was just so beat up, man.
I think they were. It was just afterward I was thinking, well, yeah, work smarter, not harder, right? At these small shows. I mean, but before then I didn't think about that. I was like, we're gonna see Davey Richards coming off the top of the flying knees. It's gonna be crazy. You mentioned your work as a paramedic. And during your time with St. Louis Anarchy and maybe other companies around the St. Louis area as well, 5 or 6 years ago, you missed a lot of dates, had to pull out at the last moment. And Matt Jackson would say, he's got important obligations. He's got EMS. Tell us about pulling out of those dates and priorities.
Pointing out a lot of those dates was one of the problems was Tony would get me booked and then tell me again. Well, that was part of it. He would get me booked and then I would realize like, you didn't tell me that. I'm already booked somewhere else. Yeah. Two, being the champion, you got a lot of like, not last minute, but very short notice obligations. And then three, I was beat up. I mean, I can look back at it now and be honest, but I had some really bad knee problems that were, started in college and just, eventually ended up with 7 knee surgeries. I can't remember how many, a lot, but, so I was beat up, really bad. And, I was going to school full time to be a paramedic. And then, but I look back now and I was just burnt out, I was and wrestling is one of those things where it's easy to say, well, just take it easy but in wrestling, you never know when the opportunities are going to end. You know what I mean? So you really want to take advantage of all those opportunities, and not knowing how to pace myself as I do now, I just kind of took on more than I could handle physically and mentally. So.
Was that the reason for your eventual departure from Ring of Honor? It didn't seem to be too amicable. They kind of blasted you on Twitter. I don't know who was behind that. They said you were unprofessional or unreliable or something like that.
Yeah. So I can look back now and, I was caught in an ideological battle between Cornette and Hunter. Delirious.
And they were both with Ring of Honor at that time.
Yeah, and they were co-bookers, which has always worked out great in the past for any wrestling company. Right. But I was Cornette's boy, as people went, and Steen was them. And we were used, me and Kevin were always good friends, and then we really got into it, and then only years later realized, like, wait, you didn't say that? No, I didn't say that. And then we kind of like, oh, I see, we were pawns. And then I was just, really trying to, I was getting a lot of heat on both ends from New Japan and Ring of Honor because I am trying to do both. And New Japan wanted me just to be there full time, and Ring of Honor wanted me to be there full time. Or if not full time, they wanted me to put them as precedence. And it's like, well, okay, Ring of Honor, I helped build my name. New Japan is a much bigger company. I'm getting paid more. So I'm like, at one point, I'm Ring of Honor World Champion, and I bought my own flight to Ring of Honor from Tokyo because we just had to get me there, and no one would pay for it. Mm. So it's like, it was very, very different back then. And, I was in a much different place. I was not appreciative of the talent I had in wrestling. I was, quite frankly, I was arrogant. And I didn't handle things in a very professional way because... I knew I was the best, and I know all I got to do is put me in the ring, and everyone's going to want to use me, and blah blah blah, and that's one part of it, but there's so much more. Just I was a very poor leader, I can admit that now. There were some things that happened that I don't agree with, like us being pawns in this ideological battle. Pardon me, but I can look back now and say I was not a good leader as I should have been.
Well, around the same time, Eddie Edwards also leaves Ring of Honor, and things really look up for you guys whenever you appear on NXT against, I think, the NXT Tag Champions at the time, the Ascension, Derek Billington. Oh, there's a Dynamite Kid homage for you. And what was Eddie's name? Cahill, Jacob Cahill, or something. You guys only appeared once. What happened?
So again, I didn't grow up watching WWF, so it was never a goal of mine to go there. And
did they seek you out?
Yes, quite a few times actually. It's funny because I was actually taking my final test for paramedic school, and Canyon Seaman, the guy who did the talent, whatever he did there, reached out and they're like, "Yeah, we want to bring you guys in, and we're just going to do a quick 2-week camp, and you guys are going to go on SmackDown." And we're like, okay, well, that might work because Eddie is adamant about not leaving Boston, which I understand. He grew up there. His family's there. You know what I mean? Us moving to Florida was like, no, which is perfectly fine with me because I can barely handle these St. Louis summers. So Florida, I would just freaking die. So we go down there and we're in this like those tryout camps they do, but it was weird because we were helping coach. You know, and then we did an exhibition match. So like they had the guys like, here, this is what wrestling should look like, and it was me and Eddie wrestling each other. So it was really weird. And then we had this match, and the match was whatever, and then we just we were told that we were going to SmackDown, but they wanted us to move down there, and that was like
to Florida.
Yeah, and that's just not going to happen. And at the same time, I just got my paramedic license and really did want to and still love to work as a paramedic. I love it. It's something I really enjoy. And so obviously that's not going to happen when you're in WWE. So at the same time, TNA reached out, Dave Lagana, who had previously written TV for Ring of Honor. And like, hey, we want to bring you guys in. Here's the schedule. It's much more conducive. And the money was good. And so that was just a much better fit for us and for them because, WWE, like I totally understand. They want people who are that as their life and they are committed solely to WWE. And I totally understand that. And that's just never going to be me. That's just, I don't like wrestling on TV. I hate it. I don't like wrestling 4 or 5 minute matches. I like to wrestle at least 15, if not 20. That's just the way I wrestle. And that's not conducive for them. So I totally understand. And I've never said a bad thing about them. We were treated great. We were treated very professionally, very respectful. It just, that's not what we were looking for. So, and both parties have gone their separate ways and done just fine. So win-win.
You and Eddie had a great time, a great tenure in TNA as the tag team champions, a second career as a tag team there. And it culminated with yet another Davey versus Eddie feud at the end, a Full Metal Mayhem. Yeah. Were you satisfied with how your run went and how you guys went out?
Yeah, I was very happy with everything. After that feud, I could tell that my time there was limited, both by my own choice and I think by theirs. So it was definitely time for me to leave wrestling for a little bit.
And you said that you wanted to go and become a doctor, and you were going to school for that. Did you become a doctor?
I am currently in the process, but it's looking good.
That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, so
congrats on that. But you're coming back to wrestling now.
Yeah, so when I blew my ACL out in Birmingham, England with TNA, when I got better, I went to Fire Academy, St. Louis County Fire Academy.
This is 2017, right?
Yes, maybe 20. Yeah, but around that time. So, and then I got offered a job by Richmond Heights Fire Department, and so I took that. I needed some time off wrestling. I was so beat up, and I needed another knee surgery, of course. And I was just burnt out, and so I took a few years off and worked as a firefighter paramedic for Richmond Heights and then for Melville Fire Protection District, and then started going back to school, and then finally I had my last knee surgery, and me and my wife went to California, and right after the surgery I was like, dude, I'm back. I can do what I want to do again, and then. Still didn't really think about going back to pro wrestling because I accomplished all my goals, and I was like, so we were watching Cobra Kai, And there's that scene where Johnny's watching Iron Eagle, and he says, God doesn't give people things, he doesn't want them to use. And, my wife is far more intelligent than she gets credit for, and she knows me better than I know myself, and she kind of gives me the look, and she's like, you need to go back. And, so between, Johnny Lawrence and that show and my wife, it was like, it's time to go back and do this my way. And everything is just unbelievably fallen into place since.
Here in St. Louis, you call out Minoru Suzuki at the South Broadway Athletic Club. You guys had a hell of a match with him coming out on top after the pile driver. Awesome match. First time ever in the ring with Suzuki, yeah?
And singles, yes. We didn't tags in Japan, but singles, yes. And he's very hard to get a singles match with in Japan because it's so prestigious. So it was a big honor for me.
Major League Wrestling picked you up real quick. The Opera Cup tournament. As of now, you're past the first round.
I am.
This is a big event. This comes from Stu Hart's legacy.
Yep.
The Opera Cup tournament,
which is really great for me because I grew up watching Stampede Wrestling. So I'm very happy with MLW. I had offers from a few different companies, and I'm really happy with MLW.
All right. So I want to end on Team Ambition because that's the present and the future. But before we get there, I warned you, we want the maddest, the baddest, the saddest. Your wrestling horror story from the locker room, the road, or the ring. Man. So, what do you have today?
Oh, how much time do you got? So they all revolve around Tony Kozina. So people don't know Tony Kozina. He's the sweetest human being alive, who is also the craziest man alive. So I'll give you a couple. So here's the first one. So when I was how I met Tony Kozina, actually. So I got trained by Paul Orndorff down in Atlanta, and then I done my 4-month camp, and I come back to Washington, and I'm driving up to Canada all the time to train with what was called ECCW up in British Columbia, and the trainer up there, Michelle Starr, was like, hey, Tony Kozina has a school in Portland, which was closer to my house. And at the time, Tony was like NWA World Junior Weight Champion. Like, oh man. So go down there. I was told to be there at like 9 a.m., whatever. And it's at this swap meet where there's a wrestling ring. And I'm waiting. I'm like, man, it's 9:30. Where the hell is everybody? And, and all of a sudden, I see this old beat up Ford F-150 with a lawnmower in the back just flying down the road. There's grass flying everywhere. Is heavy metal blasted. And then they pull up. And then the truck shuts off, and then the door opens. The door opens, and but when I see feet hit the ground, the guy's head disappears. I'm like, where is this guy? It shuts the door, and it was Tony Kozina. I didn't know he was like 5'3". So we go in there, and then he falls asleep on the ring. So later, getting to a more horror story. Me and Tony are driving to Hayward, California, which is like San Francisco area, and we're driving back through the night. It's like an 8-hour drive or whatever, and I'm half asleep, and Tony's just zonked out, and we both had Diet Pepsis, and Tony chewed at the time, so he drank his Diet Pepsi and was using it as a spit cup, and I'm half asleep, so I go for mine. But I grab his and I drink it. I'm like, whoa, what the hell? And Tony felt so bad. The last one I'll tell about Tony is, so Tony's idol, we had two idols in wrestling, Ric Flair and Terry Funk, which, good idols to have. So me and Tony are wrestling somewhere in North Carolina, I think Gastonia, North Carolina, a small show. But Terry Funk was on the show. And Terry Funk was the main event, of course, against someone, and me and Tony were in a tag match as the semi-main event. So, we go and we do our tag match, and we're back in the locker room, and we shower, and we're talking like, oh, man, like that went well, or this didn't go well. And then Terry Funk went and did his match, and he goes back and showers. And so Terry Funk walks out of his shower butt naked and just puts his foot on the bench right by Tony, just completely Captain Morgan's him. He's like, well, kid, what do you think? And like Tony goes, it was a good match, sir. And he just sits there and talks to him. And Tony's dick's like right in Tony's face. And then Terry Funk walks away and Tony just goes, that was my idol. And then there's like this long pause and he goes, why is this happening to me? And I just freaking lost it. And then Tony got all pissed off at me, like, what did I do? So,
hey man, never meet your idols. You know?
yeah,
What
man.
can you
He
say?
actually said that. He's
Really?
like, well, I guess I should never meet my idols. I hope I never meet Flair.
Oh no, yeah, no, yeah, yeah. Don't meet Flair. Davey, it's all about team ambition nowadays. The match with Suzuki, when you came out, they were all in your corner. I thought that was an amazing visual.
Yep.
I'm very familiar with, I think, just about all of those guys now and girls. Such great talents in the ring. Any future world champions in the bunch?
Multiple.
Yeah.
They are. It's just from outlaw to technical difficulties to no role models to Warhorse. You know, I mean, I had a very cool. So I'm a wrestler at MLW, but I work as an agent there, and I get to agent Warhorse's next match, and I'm very excited for him. And I was like, I'm not your trainer, I'm not above you, but I'm very proud of you. And he was like, I really see you as a mentor, and so. We have a very deep bond, they really feel like family. And then they've been over to my house, they met my family. So we have a very strong thing. And, and there's people there with like Mike Outlaw is just really talented. Nelson, who wrestles as Camaro, he's just so talented. And we got some big things planned, and not only, for us wrestling other promotions, but 2022 is going to be a big year for St. Louis wrestling. It's really cool now that everywhere I go, people are asking, like, man, what's going on in St. Louis? Can I come out there? Can I get booked? And I feel sorry for Dan from Glory Pro because he's got to deal with the licensing for all these people. And I just go, yeah, just talk to Dan. So, we have some really talented people, like Drew from, No Role Models. Eli is going to be, he's already big, but, he's going to be, very popular. And so, and I really think Tootie is we're at the very genesis of her. I'm really excited to come back and do this, podcast in 2 years, and none of it will be about me. It'll be about them. It'll be about like, man, Tootie's the champion here, and Warhorse is here, and Camaro just got signed, and that's what I want. I want to see our school build. I want to see the wrestling community here build. So it's and everything's looking up. So I'm very fortunate to be not the leader of it, but a part of it.
Yeah, ATM and Eli Rossi, they're making strides as tag team champions in Cape Girardeau. Tootie Lynn, she had a rocky moment at the Chase, at the NWA Empower, at the very end against Chelsea Green. And I remember all of the ladies were up on the stage, and they were taking a bow and like raising their arms, but she was in the front row hugging her family, and I thought that was very much kind of like a rocky moment. She was the one that everyone was cheering for in that ballroom. Yeah,
because
one of the only locals on the show.
Yeah, and this is that's why we always hashtag it. This is our city, and our goal is to not only we have the ambition to come from not such great beginnings, but we have the ambition to make it, but we also have a lot of pride in representing our city and showing them that we are the best wrestlers in the world, and I believe we'll do it.
Amen to that. Davey, I know you're on Twitter. How can the fans follow you on social media?
You can follow me at Richards Wesley on Twitter, and for all my wrestling and struggles with technology. My Instagram is run by a hacker, and he does a great job, so I don't even bother him about it anymore. One less thing for me to do. My Instagram got taken over by some hacker guy who's like is he in India or South Africa? I can't remember, but he does a great job. He promotes me way better than I promoted myself, and he doesn't want me to pay him anything. So hey, let him have it.
Good deal.
But Twitter's the main thing. I'm on there all the time, retweeting a lot of stuff, and a lot about the St. Louis wrestling scene. But more so than following me, I would love to have these people follow Glory Pro, St. Louis Anarchy, WrestleMax, and the St. Louis wrestling scene. And some of the great wrestlers we have in it, which we talked about earlier in this podcast. So if you want to follow me, that's great. Thank you very much. But please, I implore you, follow the St. Louis wrestling scene because we're building something very special here.
Yeah, and if I can put myself over for just a moment, I don't know if you've heard, I'm a little more active on Twitter now. I know what you're thinking. It's a little scary, but just go ahead and follow me at the Ben Simon, and also the show at Grandel Wrestle. That's on Twitter. On Instagram, we're Grandel Wrestling. Today's show was produced by Joey O'Farrell, as always. Our engineer is Logan Perez. We're at Mid Coast Media here in Midtown St. Louis. Hit up Chris Denman, the owner, if you want to get involved and record your show here at this wonderful facility. Davey, thank you so much for being with me here today.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time, for the Grandel Wrestling Podcast, this is Ben Simon saying so long from the Show Me State.